We librarians do not have any hold on the writers or the publishers of the books. We have to undertake the cataloging in whatever form they are published. The main aim of cataloging the books is to help a reader to identify the books from such a huge collection of books in the library. Say this book, this is edited by someone else, but there are so many authors in this. Yet there are books which is translated by someone. There are also books which have got so many illustrations and the illustrator's name is given prominently. Yet we have got number of cases where books are abridged by someone other than the author. In cases where we have got such diverse information, we have to see the different approaches by which a reader is going to access the book. Therefore, we have to catalog the books accordingly. To overcome such problems, AACR2 has given few rules for the effective cataloging of such documents. Now, let's begin with some of the rules that are laid down for the works under editorial direction. See the title page of this book. The title says, Controversial Issues in the Curriculum, edited by J.J. Willington. If we turn to the contents page of this book, we observe that there are a number of authors. In fact, there are 10 authors who have contributed for this book. Though the thought content of book is contributed by the authors themselves, but very rarely a reader is going to ask by any one of these names, because it's very difficult to remember all the 10 names. In this book, the editor's name, which is J.J. Willington, is given in very bold and prominent letters on the cover itself. Under such circumstances, the rule provides that the entry should be made under the title of the book, and an indication is given that an edit entry has to be made for the editor of this book. Therefore, the main entry of this book is this is an example of collective title, which means that contents are varied and it's not authored by a single person. In other words, the title in such cases does not reflect the single contribution. Whenever we have an entry under the title of the book, the continuation should be from the second indentation till the body of the entry, and the continuation of physical description, notes, ISBN and tracing has to be carried on from the first indentation. For this book, there will be an edit entry for the editor of this book, which is J.J. Willington. And in addition to this edit entry, we have to make another edit entry for this, which is the subject edit entry. Here, for this book, we have the curriculum as the subject edit entry. Let me have one more book as an example, which comes under the category of mixed or shared responsibility. The title page of this book gives all the information that are required for the cataloging of this document. This book is translated by Robert Fitzgerald. Being a classic, it has been translated by many. Therefore, an edit entry has to be provided for this specific translator. The title page gives an indication that the introduction is written by G.A. Scrick. This type of information has to be mentioned in the body of the entry. Generally, we don't provide an additional entry for this kind of information. Now let's have a look at all the entries for this book. Here is the main entry card for this particular book. We observe from the main card itself that the edit entries are to be provided for the title, for the translator of the concerned document, which is Fitzgerald, Robert, and for the series of this book. In case of the title entry, the title of the book is written on the top line of the card. Similarly, in the case of the translator edit entry, translator's name, that is Robert Fitzgerald, is also written on the top line of the card. So far as the series of this concerned document is concerned, it is also to be mentioned on the top line of the catalogue card. Now, I present another book under the category of mixed or shared responsibility. Let's have a look at this book. If we turn to the title page of this book, we observe that there are two collaborators whose names have prominently figured in the title page. One who has written a memoir of John Keats, and another who has provided illustrations at the appropriate places. EACR 2 provides that edit entry has to be prepared for such cases. Now, let's have a look at the main entry card for this document. This is a very interesting title. Please note that there is one more peculiarity associated with it. The name of the author is merged with the title of the document, and it's not given separately on the title page. Under such circumstances, the entry is to be made under Keats, because he is solely responsible for the thought content of this document. Coming back to the illustrator, if the illustrations are minor and are not of much significance, then we need not to provide the illustrator's edit entry. In this case, illustrator George Schraff is given prominence, and hence an edit entry is prepared. The other two entries that are to be prepared for this document are title edit entry and for Richard Monckton Mills, who has written a memoir on John Keats. This is called as an analytical entry. A memoir constitutes of the original writing giving biographical details of John Keats. Hence it merits an edit entry under its writer's name, R.M. Mills. This is called as an author analytical entry. Note down the style of writing of the author analytical entry. In case of this type of entry, the author's name is to be represented from the first indentation, as he is solely responsible for this part of the document. That's why R. Mill's name is represented from the first indentation in this case. Now, I'm going to take up another type of document termed multi-volumed book. In case the thought contents of a particular book cannot be accommodated on a single volume, it becomes necessary to take a recourse to a number of such volumes to explain the subject under consideration fully. This type of situation leads to the production of what is technically referred to as multi-volumed books. There are a number of characteristics associated with the descriptive elements of such multi-volumed publications. Some of them are: number 1, common title page for all the volumes. Number 2, besides the common title page, all the volumes may have a different title. Number 3, all the volumes may or may not have continuous pagination. And number 4, all the volumes may or may not be published during the same year, or they may have different years of publication. And now, let's discuss the cataloging procedures associated with the multi-volumed publications. This is a set of 3 volumes. The common title for this is Walford Guide to Reference Material. Besides this common title, each volume has a title of its own. The entries for this set of volumes are: main entry, which is prepared on 2 cards. Did you question the use of second card in the main entry? The reason for this is that we could not accommodate all the information on one card. You may use as many number of cards as required to complete the cataloging of a book. The subsequent cards, other than the first card, is called as the continuation cards. And now, let's study the style of writing of these continuation cards. On the first card, at the bottom line, mention continued on the next card, and put subsequent numbers in the center of the second card or the third card, whatever the case is. Write on the left hand side of the top line the word continued. Repeat the heading statement in the subsequent cards so that these cards don't get isolated from each other, and it's easy for us to club them together in the catalog cabin. Now, back to the main entry. In this case, the main entry is under the title because it's published under the editorial direction. The 4th edition has been brought out during 1980 to 1987. As per AACR 2, if all the volumes of a multi-volumed book are separately paginated, then there is a provision to indicate such information within parentheses after mentioning the total number of volumes. Hence, in this case also, we have mentioned the total number of volumes and the total number of pages of individual volumes within parentheses. ISBN of only the first volume is to be mentioned in the main entry card. In case all the volumes have different titles besides the common title, then such information is to be indicated in what is called as the content part after ISBN. In this particular example, we notice that all the volumes are edited by 3 different persons. Such information is to be given against the respective volumes. Although, in the case of the first volume, it is to be mentioned in the statement of responsibility part itself. The tracing part gives an indication about the total number of edit entries that are to be prepared. And in this case, in all, we have to make 6 additional entries. By now, you are fully conversant with the preparation of the additional entries. Therefore, I need not explain them again. Now, let's take another aspect in cataloging. It is the preparation of analytical entries. An analytical entry is to be prepared for a part of document or for a volume out of a set of volumes. This concept will be clear after we consider the example of each type. See this book. The title boldly says, Struggle for Freedom. This is one of the volumes out of a set of 11 volumes. The common title for all these volumes is The History and Culture of Indian People. The main entry for this document is to be prepared under the title History and Culture of the Indian People. Here is the main entry in this case. See, we have here again make use of second continuation card because we could not accommodate all the information on the first card itself. The title Struggle for Freedom becomes the analytical entry in this case, and the main entry will be under the running title, which is History and Culture of the Indian People. Before I start with the analytical entries, let me read out the main entry card to you first. Here is the heading of the main entry card, that is, The History and Culture of the Indian People. It's edited by R.C. Majumdar and assisted by A.K. Majumdar. This is the edition, then this is the place of publication, name of publisher and year of publication. And here in the content part, the information about all the volumes is given. See, in the continuation card, besides the information about all the volumes, the information about the tracing area is also given. Tracing area gives an indication about the required number of entries that are to be made for the concerned document. Now, whatever titles are indicated in the content part of the main entry card, the analytical entries are to be prepared for all of them. Because a reader may remember only one of the titles out of 11 titles. Therefore, it becomes necessary to make all the analytical entries for the given number of titles. Such analytical entries are termed as the title analytical entry, which is this, in this case, it is Struggle for Freedom. Besides the title analytical entries, there are also author and subject analytical entries. The subject analytical entries shall be discussed in the classified catalog code. Now, I'll present the author analytical entry. Here is the author analytical entry in this case. Now, I present another book. This book is edited by Robert G. Burgess. There are 12 contributors who have contributed to the thought content of this book. And now I shall be picking up only one of the contributors randomly to show you how to prepare an author analytical entry. This is the author analytical entry in this case. The additional entries for each contributor can be prepared if desired. Such entries are to be prepared in the cases when subject holds importance for the library, or in other words, the subject deals with the subject specialization of the library. For example, our library at Indira Gandhi National Open University specializes in distance education. Therefore, analytical entries are to be prepared for the documents on distance education. This being the author analytical entry, and for her contribution, this will become the title analytical entry. Here, the title reads as Social Policy and Education, Problems and Possibilities of Using Qualitative Research by Janet Finch. And now, let's revise all the points that we have discussed so far in this program. We began with the exercise on works under editorial direction. Such a situation arises in cases when the thought content of a document is contributed by a number of authors, and the heading is made under the title of the document. Additional entries to be prepared for the prominent illustrator, translator, title and series, and also author analytical entries to be prepared for the writer of memoir for special classes. The two documents by Homer and Keats comes under the category of literature. Therefore, in AACR2, the rule states that edit entries for the subject to be provided is optional. What is a multi-volumed publication? How are multi-volume publications catalogued? And what are the number of characteristics associated with the descriptive elements of such multi-volumed publications? How are continuation cards prepared? And lastly, how and when author and title analytical entries are prepared for the multi-volumed publications. In the forthcoming program, we shall be discussing the cataloging procedures associated with the documents having corporate authors.